So, welcome to our coffee chat, Sowing Seeds for Our Future, where we'll be learning about winter sowing, our new strategic plan, and also have some moments for reflection together. So, I'm going to get us started just with a few access notes for Zoom. Like I just said, the session will be recorded and it will be posted to our YouTube channel. Please keep yourself muted during the presentation. If for some reason you unmute, one of us might mute you. So thank you for your understanding in that regard. Closed captions are also available. So I'm going to pause here for a few seconds in case you cannot find the closed captions, which should be a button at the bottom of your screen. Just let us know. So I'm going to pause here and make sure that everybody can find it if they need it. And if you can't find it, feel free to unmute or put it in the chat and let us know. All right, assuming all is well. Please use the chat to let us know if you can't see something or hear something. We'll definitely pause and rectify that. And if you have questions during the session, put them in the chat so that we can keep track of them and answer all of them at the end. So that's the end of the presentation. I will now read the Metro Blooms Land and Labor Acknowledgement. So we are on the stolen homelands and treaty territory of the Dakota Oyate. Minnesota, the US government, and European white colonizers carried out genocide, ethnic cleansing, and forced removal of the Dakota to acquire land and wealth. The Iowa, Ho-Chunk, Anishinaabe, and other indigenous nations have also called this region home. The waters and plants here have traditional, spiritual, and cultural significance to the indigenous peoples of this land, who are still here stewarding them. We acknowledge the violent exploitation, trafficking, and enslaved labor of Africans and their descendants by white colonizers on these same stolen lands. Deeply rooted white supremacy continues to propagate injustices in health, wealth, and opportunity. Here and across the country, Black communities are segregated and displaced, disrupting traditions and relationships with the land. We benefit greatly from the undervalued and co-opted contributions of Black communities who have made possible much of our country's economic and cultural growth. Take a moment to reflect internally. How does white supremacy show up in your life? How might you be participating, and how can we come together to mobilize change? I'm going to pause here for a few seconds. We have much to learn from Minnesota's Indigenous and Black communities about how we relate to each other and the earth. Jaden, I'll pass it to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jaden Ellington Vassar. Okay, I'm gonna talk about this. Fannie Lou Hamer founded the Freedom Farm Cooperative in 1969 in the Sunflower County, Mississippi, creating a model for corporate farming and self-sufficiency that is the foundation of environmental justice and food sovereignty work today. Her leadership shows us that environmental justice and social justice are two sides of the same coin. I pulled a quote from her, and she said, "When I liberate myself, I liberate others. If you do not speak out, ain't nobody gonna speak out for you."
Thanks, Jaden. Okay, so I'm gonna get us into introductions before we get started. I'll kick us off. My name is Gaia. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the Associate Director at Metro Blooms. I'll pass it back to you, Jaden, actually.
Hi, I almost introduced myself too early. My name is Jaden Ellington Vassar. I'm an environmental and social justice coordinator for Metro Booms. I'll pass it to Laura.
Hey y'all, I'm Laura Shaw. I use she and her pronouns, and I am the executive director at Metro Blooms. I'm going to talk a bit tonight about our new strategic plan. Layla, I think I saw you on here too.
Hi, my name is Layla. I'm also an environmental justice and social justice manager on the community relations team.
Devika, not to put you on the spot, but if you do want to say hello or wave.
I'm Devika. Wow, I'm just turning on my video and realizing how bad my lighting is. So that's good. I'm going to fix that. But I'm Devika, and I had the great honor of working with the Metro Blooms team on their strategic plan. So I'll say a little bit more about that. Should I pass it to just someone in the room?
No, I think we're good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Laura, I'm gonna kick it to you for strategic plan stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Gaia, and welcome everyone. It's so nice to see folks here tonight. I know people come to our work in a lot of different ways through community projects and through our Blue Thumb education workshops and resources and design build clientele, donors. So, however you came to us, thank you so much for joining us and being here and part of our community. Over the last year, we have spent a lot of time tending to something really important to us, a new strategic plan. And this was developed through really deep collaboration with staff and board members and community partners, and really asked a lot of everyone that participated to pause and listen and reflect on who we've been and what our communities need us to be moving forward, and how we can be really clear in the work that we do and move forward with a lot of care. We do this, we actually spent the last year doing this, but are intentional about sharing it now, recognizing that even in the stillness of winter, we can take small intentional actions that make future growth possible. And our strategic plan really guides us in keeping up with like planting those ideas and partnerships and developing this work and practices that we know will grow into meaningful change come spring. So we are so thrilled to share with you now our new vision for the future. Metro Blooms envisions a just future of thriving communities where all people connect with and care for the land, water, and diverse life around them. And we reach towards that vision through our mission statement. So we continue to partner with communities to nurture and support thriving ecosystems, land, and water. We practice shared leadership and care, moving towards environmental justice. I know they're words on a page now, but they took many, many hours. A lot of people committing a lot of time to really develop this clarity in who we are. So we're very excited to share that with you. We spent a lot of time in this process also discussing our values, which really help guide like how we work. And for us, that question of how we work and the processes we hold in our work, sometimes even more important than the end result that we reach. So really want to share those with you all as well. And we'll just highlight a couple. Our 6 values are here on the page, and then you can also see them at the link that Graciela dropped in the chat, which is on our Who We Are page. But I wanted to highlight shared leadership. You might have noticed that shared leadership is actually named in our mission statement. It's a value that we hold really dearly. It shows up in a lot of ways for us, both internally and externally. Internally, we're questioning and removing hierarchies within our work that are harmful for our staff and for our work. And externally, we really think about this a lot in how we partner, trusting and prioritizing community voices and always sharing in decision-making power and really leaning towards community voice as we make decisions in any project we participate in. And Layla was going to share or just highlight another one for us too.
Give me 1 second. Sorry. I'm be highlighting on our benefits of learning from others. We recognize that we all benefit from a diverse way of knowing, listening, and teaching, and learning alongside another. In our program and partnership, we intentionally create spaces for community voices, lived experience to guide our work. We also acknowledge and learn from Indigenous peoples whose land we live and work on, grounding our environmental efforts in respect and shared responsibilities.
Thanks, Layla. You can see more about those values on our website too. So once we were really grounded in our values, we spent time considering our core purpose. Why do we exist? And how do we fulfill that purpose? And Fannie Lou Hamer, that we talked about earlier, showed us how interconnected social and environmental justice are. And Metro Blooms holds that truth really closely, and it is really key to why we exist. We actually named it in our theory of change. We really want the communities most impacted by environmental degradation to benefit first and to benefit the most from this work that we do together. So Gaia, you could go to the next slide. Thank you. So this is a part of our theory of change, how we accomplish our core purpose. And one key way we meet this purpose is by partnering with affordable housing communities to explore and implement climate adaptation practices in their outdoor spaces. And I wanted to highlight this work because I think it touches on all four of the priorities or strategies that you see on this page. So our work in those partnerships is really focused on the residents, the renters, the people that call this place home. We prioritize their voices throughout our design and implementation process. We ensure they're paid for their input. We learn together about ways that can protect clean water and create livable outdoor spaces, create pollinator habitat. We don't come to those partnerships assuming that we have all the answers and know what to do. We really lean on the community to tell us what they need, and like any issues they see in their outdoor spaces or opportunities for improvements. They definitely always know best. And we believe that all life, land, and water has inherent value. And so that's really key for us too, that we don't just do this work for the people that live here, but kind of shift that thinking towards like our land and water and life all have inherent value. And the more that we can connect with that and connect with the communities around us, the greater capacity we have to care for those things. That was the main example I was going to highlight. Layla or Jaden, if either of you want to share anything else, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we can pass it to Devika.
Yeah, just on a quick note, just like Laura was saying, we really want to prioritize these spaces because a lot of times they're overlooked. And as an organization, we want to be the ones that are able to have that one-on-one connection to make people not only seen, but heard and have what they want come to life and us be with them through the process.
Thanks, Jaden. All right, I'm going to pass it to you, Devika. Devika was one of the consultants we worked with on our strategic plan to share a little bit more about this process from their perspective.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. Yeah, gosh, it was hard to pick what to say. This was, as Laura said, a kind of long and labor-intensive process with many steps and a lot of time and energy and heart put in by all the staff and board. So I'm going to not do it justice at all, not even try, but just wanted to highlight a couple things about this process to develop the vision, mission, values that you just heard about, the theory of change that you just heard about. One thing I want to highlight is just even as we came into working with the organization, one thing that our team noticed and felt was that, many folks we do strategic planning with have put a lot of time into getting their commitments, statements, and their values and their sort of like DEI commitments onto paper. And yeah, and we live in an imperfect world and we're all doing our best. And so often the actual practices are a little bit behind what's on paper. And coming into this organization, I think we just found it really unique and interesting that the actual practices and commitments were actually pretty far ahead of what they already had on paper in terms of their um, values, vision. I mean, really all of it. And you heard Laura talk about some of those examples of how those commitments play out, who should benefit and who should be centered in this work. And you heard Jaden talk about how that listening and collaboration happens and that shared leadership. So a lot of those actual practices were already happening and the muscle was already there. But then when we looked at kind of what the organization had in writing and what they wanted to get to, yeah, we just noticed that, oh, actually, we have the kind of easy and fun job of getting what's already happening kind of written in a more systematized, institutionalized way so that it can be incorporated and solidified across the organization. So that's a lot of what our role was. And I think the only other thing I'll say about this process was as Laura said about shared leadership, as the commitment is to shared leadership and collaboration with the communities they work with, so that commitment was also held within the organization and every single staff and board member, and in fact, even several of the seasonal staff all worked on this in a completely democratic process. There was no like rank or authority that kind of dictated, how much say anyone got. So it's not like Laura had a final say or a board member had final say. It was really the whole staff and board working together, including, like I said, seasonal staff, and then lots of partners and stakeholders giving input as well. But it was a really robust, juicy, democratic process with 40 people in the room deciding together all of those words that you read on the screen and that Laura and Jaden read out for you. All of those words were chosen democratically, and all of that work was done in teams, collaborating across teams within the organization. So I thought that was a really, again, just yeah, really unique and really seeing again those practices, those commitments really playing out in practice. So that was just a couple of things I wanted to highlight about the process, and I was really honored to work with this team, and I'm so grateful that we get to benefit from. I live in a neighborhood close by to Metro Blooms, and get to benefit from some of the work they do on the ground as well. So it was a very sweet full circle.
Thanks so much, Devika. I love how you said that you had an easy job, because that's how I describe my job at Metro Blooms. Is it's so easy to talk about this work because it's such great work. Thanks so much for sharing. All right, so we are going to go into a little interactive moment. So of course, we're so proud and excited to have this language that gives us clarity and is a place we can come back to for alignment to our values. But we also really recognize that none of our work happens alone, and we really want to acknowledge all of you here tonight. As you know, our place, our home, and all of our neighbors are really we're in a tough moment right now. And it's definitely a marathon that we're in. And so we wanted to take a moment and just share with each other what are the seeds of justice that we are all planting in this moment. And so the activity is going to look like this. We'll all take about a minute and type into the chat, the Zoom chat, what is one thing that you are doing to plant a seed of justice in this moment, in your life, today, whatever that looks like. It can be making food for your neighbor, donating to somebody's mutual aid fund, patrolling, helping out with rides, whatever that looks like for you. But don't send it yet. So just type it in the chat. And then when I say go, we'll all send it together, and it'll be a really sweet waterfall of all the ways that we are each showing up in community. Does that feel clear and doable? Are there any questions? All right. Okay, take a moment, type in the chat, and then I will let you know when to send. All right, are we ready? Okay, if you have it in there, press send. Oh, this is cute. Wow, there's so much happening. Singing resistance and grocery deliveries, rent assistance, gardening, relearning Spanish, school patrol, mutual aid, helping out neighbors, patrolling. Wow. Thank you all so much. I think this also just goes to show that we are so far from done and we are still working to bring people back home and really support our neighbors and ourselves get through this moment. So I thank you so much for what you are already doing, and we're all sending each other strength to keep doing what we're doing and be there for our people. So thank you for participating. And with that, I will pass it to you, Jaden, to close us out with winter seed sewing tips.
Sounds good. Um, so like many of us, even myself before I joined Metro Bloom's community, I didn't really know about seed sowing. I also didn't think about the process of how do things like regrow. I thought, once the snow hit, things just die off. I really didn't think further into it. But upon learning, during the summer and fall months, as the plants are dropping the seeds, once winter happens, the snow covers the seeds and they go into a dormant state like hibernation, and they slowly prepare for the coming spring. The process is called cold stratification, which is basically germinating the seeds, getting them prepared, um, and ready for spring. But for seed sowing, basically, you at home are going to be able to replicate that natural process and see it from start to finish and really understand what's going on behind the scenes in your backyards, in your front yards, right in front of you. So, I'm going to tell you a few simple steps on how to do it. So, step one, the best container to get is a milk jug. They're sturdy, they are easy to move, they have a handle, and they're great for the process. They also are like semi-clear, so the sunlight will be able to get into the jug. So you first unscrew the lid, and so the plants and everything will get like precipitation. You cut the jug in half, but you cut under the handle. The handle is very crucial because if you don't have a handle, you're going to be picking it up. It's gonna be a little more difficult. So definitely cut under the handle. Um, and then also on the bottom of it, poke holes for drainage. I would say poke the holes first. It makes it an easier process. After cutting, some things, they move around, they shift. So getting the holes out the way is the easiest. And then you get your soil and seeds. So you would fill the bottom half with about 3 to 4 inches of potting soil and lightly moisten the soil and check if it drains properly. So those holes I was talking about earlier, make sure it's actually working, because if it's not, you might have to make a few more holes. That's okay. We're all beginners. Some of us aren't. Um, and then so once you have that down, you will have your soil, and then you will start planting your seeds within the soil. Um, Plant your seeds within the soil, very simple. But an important part people miss a lot is actually naming the jug. You need a waterproof marker, or like I said, these are going to be outside. Everybody knows how the winter gets in Minnesota. So you don't want it to wipe off. You want to know exactly what you have in the jugs because hopefully you have more than one. You could see how all of them grow. And then you let nature do its work. So during the colder seasons, during the cold, like during the winter, you unscrew the lid so the air and the precipitation can get into the jug and help the seeds grow. And the jug basically kind of acts as a barrier from like the harsh winter, but the small opening in the top of the jug helps the seeds get everything they need. Plus, the jug is semi-clear, so it's able to get that sunlight in a protected area, just like if it was under the snow. It's getting that precipitation, but it's also being protected. The jug is basically, it's essentially the same thing. And then when spring comes, I know our favorite time when it's not below 10, when it gets to about 50 to 60 degrees, you're able to, I forgot I told you, you have to cut it in the middle, like right below the handle. You get to open it up. And usually that's when, I mean, we know the process. That's when snow starts melting. So you get to open up and it takes care of itself. It starts growing, it starts absorbing the moisture and the sunlight, and then you have your seedlings. You have your small little plants that you can start to put in your gardens. Um, I personally have seen the process done, and I've worked with gardens that have used this, and they are very successful. Um, oh, and there's more information in the chat, and this will be in the chat also. There is a few, yep, perfect. There are a few Black-owned seed companies that are really great. Um, Ujama Seeds, Sister Seeds, True Love Seeds, and Melanated Organics, and the Okra Lady. A lot of these same seed companies also have great resources. In addition to our resource, they have great resources for your deeper questions that I'm I may not be able to answer, but we want to make sure that you have all the materials and all of the resources to get you everything you need. Yeah.
Thanks, Jaden. And that brings us to our close. So I just want to shout out a couple things before we finish off with questions. So we're in the midst of our winter fundraising campaign. We have a 2,500 match fund from our very generous board, and 10% of funds are going to MIRAC, Minnesota Immigrants' Rights Action Committee. And so if you want to support our work, now is a really good time to do that. You can also join our Taproot team. That's our community of monthly donors. And that's a really fun group to be a part of too. And now we will answer a couple questions before we say goodbye. So I'm gonna stop sharing. Don't know if I saw any right up in the chat, but feel free to unmute or put your questions in the chat. Thanks, Graciela.
Has anyone here done winter seed sowing? Victoria, you have. Cindy, have you been successful?
This is Allison. I've been somewhat successful. Um, with milkweed, that seemed to work the best, but then like cardinal flower, I don't think I've ever gotten it to work. Those are specifically native seeds.
Yeah, cool.
Maybe after this session, if you have a successful winter seed sowing moment this year, send us some pictures and we can all celebrate together.
Yeah. Don, could you say more about your comment? Stratification times.
Absolutely. Just remember that some plants need up to 120 days cold stratification. So when you're choosing your plants for winter sowing, especially at this time of year, hopefully we don't still have 120 days. Hopefully we don't even have 60 days worth of time frame for cold stratification yet. So when you're selecting the plants that you're winter sowing at this time of year, you're going to want to look for plants that need probably 30 days or less worth of cold stratification time. You could probably sneak some of those 60 days in still, but definitely not anything that's going to need 90 days or more. You're not going to have any luck with anything like blue flag iris or some plants are even double dormancy. Look at like prairie rose or um, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head that's a really long stratification time. But there's a lot of things that don't really even need stratification. So that would be the other side of the coin. Also, there wouldn't be any need to winter sow yarrow or Minarda. Um, those plants you can just direct sow in the spring. So most of your native plant resellers, retailers should have all of that information available. Um, Oftentimes it's right on the seed packet, or it should be the time frame. It will often just be a C followed by a number, and that would indicate the days of cold stratification necessary.
This is great. I'm learning so much from you all in the chat too.
Hey, this is Rowan. I'm just wondering, how much does like location matter, like when planting native plants? Like, if you live in like northern Minnesota, and if someone lives in like southern Minnesota, how like different plants will they be planting? Like, will if they plant like a native plant garden in their yard, will their gardens look like way different? Or like, I'm just wondering like, how much does that matter really?
I was like, oh my gosh, let me make sure. It really depends on how much sunlight you get. Different native plants need different amounts of sunlight. So it really, necessarily, from my understanding, necessarily location of like northern or southern, it just matters like if it's a high shade area, low shade, or ha partial sun, full sun, you could potentially get two of the virtually of the same gardens if you guys both have full sun or full shade. It's just which native plants thrive best in the area that you would want to plant them. Does that answer your question?
For sure, yeah. Thanks so much.
I also
Your soil substrate and your moisture is going to come into play as well. So definitely if you're up in a more northern area, there are going to be plants that are going to thrive more up there. Whereas if you get down into like a much like southwestern Minnesota, where it's a lot drier, there are plants that would only live there, like blanket flower, for example. You could easily grow blanket flower in like Windham or Wilmer or someplace way down south, and you would probably not have any success growing it up by Duluth or Tower or way up north on the Canadian border because it's just not going to be cold hardy enough once you get that far up.
Got you. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for all of the amazing knowledge sharing. Really, really appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us. And I hope to see lots of winter sown seedlings this summer, spring, summer.